This is Teresa Kuhn with Heath-Frantzen of Delta Business Services, and today we're going to talk about the signs it might be time to sell your business. Most business owners ignore these signs until it's way too late. And if you're like most business owners, you've occasionally found yourself wondering what your life would be like without the stress and the hassles inherent to business ownership. Or maybe you're facing some personal challenges, such as some health issues, divorce, death in your family. Well, it could be that it's time to try something new, time to separate yourself from your business. And Heath, today we're going to discuss the 9 signs that it might be time to sell your business.
We sure are, Teresa. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be back on Living Wealthy.
Great to have you back. So let's talk about these 9 signs. What's the most obvious sign? What's the number one sign that it's time to sell your business?
Well, the most obvious sign that it's time to sell your business is that things in your life are changing, and they are changing to a degree to where it's no longer manageable. Your business is no longer manageable. So life changes are causing you to lose focus. And these are things like a divorce, an illness of a family member, having to care for elderly parents. All of that can throw work-life balance out of balance.
So
if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling depleted, fatigued, and you're just tired of having to try to focus on both the business and other matters, you might seriously consider selling your business.
So for some people, these major life events happen at a younger age, right? Certainly, divorce happens to many people. They don't have to be that old for that to happen. And a lot of people are taking care of their families. But I think you're talking about when you've reached a stage in life where you're just dealing with your business is tiring enough, adding one of these major life events just pushes you over the edge. You're no longer excited about your business. In fact, your business has become more of an anchor than something you look forward to.
Right. Yeah, it's no longer your passion. It's no longer exciting. It's no longer the thing that gets you up in the morning. And true, I did lump a lot of things in there, but there comes a point where people have had enough. And they're ready to move on to the next chapter in their lives. And they might not be able to acknowledge that, and this is the really sad part. They might not be able to acknowledge that in their own words, but internally, on the inside, they're feeling the shift. And that's the problem.
So mentally, emotionally, they'd like to check out. Or they have checked out already. They've checked out of their business. They're just going through motions.
Very good. Now, I like to call this 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Okay. All right. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Okay. So what are some of the other signs?
Well, you got a lot of other signs that are on part of that, but let me give you some of the symptoms. You have a hard time getting up in the morning and going into the office, or you're making excuses not to go into the office, or you're finding little distractions that keep you from making the calls necessary to keep your business running and growing, those kinds of things. So you're just no longer interested. You're bored.
Burnt out, maybe?
That burnt out, exactly.
So before selling the business, should a business owner consider reigniting that passion, seeing if that's even possible?
That's a great idea. And what that means is stopping for a second, putting your life on pause, and taking some time for yourself to do some critical thinking about what is making your life fulfilling. You have to look at what's going to make a life fulfilling for you at that time in your life, because the answers answers to that question when you were 35 are probably going to be very different than the answers to that question when you're 60 or 65. And you have to reprioritize and reconnect with the things that really make your life worth living. And then reprioritize and re-engage back into your life. And if that means going back to your business, then so be it. I mean, more power to you. I love the fact that you've made a decision and you're sticking with it, and that you've decided that your business is going to be your passion. A lot of good growth and contribution can come from that decision. But if it isn't, then there are some other decisions that have outweighed your decision to keep with your business, and you need to start strategizing on how you're going to reprioritize and reframe your life for this chapter.
You know, Heath, I work with a lot of business owners in my financial planning practice, and what I found many times for business owners is they have an idea in their mind, an age of when they would like to stop working. Whether that age is, 65 or 70 or sometimes 55 or 60, everyone has a different age in their mind, and they become very emotionally attached to that age. And when they've passed that age, so if they were thinking, all right, I want to be retired at 60 or 62, and now they're 64 or 65, I think they suffer from, and I'm not a clinician, but I think they suffer from like a low-grade depression.
Right.
Because they're not where they think they're supposed to be or should be, and they've got no joy in their life. They've got no joy with their business, and they're daydreaming about something different, and they feel trapped because they don't know another way out. Have you experienced this with your business owners?
We see this too many times, and indeed we've seen scientific evidence that speaks just to that fact, that people go into a low-grade depression whenever the subject of retirement or some financial issue, particularly a big financial issue that has some complexity to it, people will go into a depression when that subject comes up and they're faced with talking about it. There have even been studies that have shown that when folks who can assist business owners with these financial issues call on the phone, the business owner won't take the call because of the depressive aspects of the conversation.
So why is that depressive? If this isn't a possible out for them, right? Why does that? Is it because they're in a state of lethargy and it takes so much energy to think about doing something different?
Sure. The answer to that is simple. However, the causes of that are difficult. Here's the real answer. The real answer is because those issues are complex and there's so much complexity surrounding the issue that it's very difficult for most people to figure out. And because they can't figure it out, their natural default psychologically is to get depressed about it. The deeper issue is that those mental conditions don't lend themselves easily to someone getting up, going and doing the homework to gain the skills and tools it takes to solve the complex issues. Because that's the path that so many people need to go down, but they feel so much psychological and emotional pain from going down that road that they're fearful. So the only thing that they are able to feel at that point is depression. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are solutions to that problem. We'll get to those later.
Right. So they're already lethargic with their business, right? They've lost the passion with their business. They're feeling somewhat overwhelmed because there's some major life events that have changed in their life that they need to address. So they've got all the stress and the issues with their business, life event, low-grade depression, the thought of trying to figure out how to exit the business feels overwhelming, and so they're trapped. They're trapped in their emotions. They're trapped in their thinking. Is that
Right.
is that a good summary?
That's it. And the unmet expectations. They wanted to have so much in net worth by such and such an age, and it didn't work out.
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
That's
so
huge.
They have these arbitrary expectations that they put on themselves that have no basis in reality. I don't really think that's a way to live your life successfully, because life tends it's the old saying, people make plans and God laughs.
Right.
Life is much more open than that, and you have to be flexible and fluid and go with the flow. And if your arbitrary financial goals or arbitrary retirement goals aren't necessarily met by the timeline that you put on it, look, you shouldn't beat yourself up about that.
People do that all the time.
Yeah, you shouldn't condemn yourself about it, because I'll guarantee you that is a guaranteed way to lose whatever it is that you're thinking about.
Right.
You can't put those arbitrary psychological barriers up. You have to set yourself up to win mentally and then win in life. And that means breaking out of that psychological pattern.
I see that all the time. I work with money, and people's expectations of where they thought how much money they'd have and whether they'd be in retirement or not, whether they could help their children or not. That's a huge one. The other expectation, I think, Heath, might be the expectation that the children might want to take over the business. And when children
Right.
don't want to take over a business, that's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, I see this one a lot. Too many times I see this. There's a statistic, it's verifiable, that 378,000 business owners are turning 65 each year. It's huge. Baby
Wow.
boomers are a huge wave of our economy right now. They're the most entrepreneurial generation that we've ever had. They're also the single largest generation that we have. So 378,000 on an annual basis are retiring. 60% of them will be able to exit their businesses internally. That means either to a family member or to a trusted employee who's been with them for a number of years who they see as family. So there's going to be an internal exit there. That leaves 40% who have to sell their businesses externally, and they can't. Now, going back to the internal exit problem, yes, there are some family members who may want to take over a mom and dad's business, for example, but baby boomers have Generation Y kids, and Generation Y kids aren't necessarily interested in mom and dad's dry cleaning business or asphalt paving company. They've grown up in that business and they've had enough. They want to go on and do something else. They want to do something fresh and new and sexy and innovative. Generation Y likes technology, so they're going to be doing software companies, internet companies, and so forth. So then mom and dad are stuck. Here they are. There's 378,000 baby boomer business owners that are turning 65 each year. 60% of them may have a successful internal exit. 40% of them, that's like 150,000. 150,000 each year are trying to sell their businesses, and oh my goodness, the number of qualified business buyers is so small. That pool of business buyers is so small that they're competing. The sellers are competing, and they're trying to sell their businesses to a very, very small group who can basically cherry pick their opportunities.
They're competing against other business owners that are trying to sell their businesses to a small number of buyers.
A small number of buyers, right.
So the whole business selling, it's a buyer's market.
It is a buyer's market. It's going to be a buyer's market for the next couple of decades, 20 to 25 years.
Wow.
And just to give you some statistics, if it's 150,000 business owners who are trying to sell their businesses, the pool of buyers is about 7,500.
Wow.
So you got about 142,500 business owners who are out of luck.
for this year, and then next year there's another 150,000 pool of 150,000 businesses coming on the market.
Yes.
Those are not very that's not a very good number for someone who wants to sell their business and is suffering from a low-grade depression and is overwhelmed with their business, and they're not putting any energy back into their business because they're exhausted and they have to take care of their mother or their father, and that's tough.
And now you see how the mountain of complexity builds. And it wages war on someone's psyche.
And at the same time, I think time becomes their enemy, because the less energy and the less passion they're able to put into their business, that business loses value and it loses its competitive edge. Since it's a buyer's market, their business becomes less attractive to a buyer.
Right. And that's another front on which their psyche is being assaulted, because they're thinking, my goodness, my business is losing relevance. And it really, if you want to sell your business and do it successfully, it's about attraction. It's about creating an opportunity for a buyer to be attracted to you and want your business for what value it proposes to the marketplace. And if all of these things are waning, and some of them really quickly, if all of these things are just sort of working together, almost colluding, in fact, against a seller of a business, it can be very daunting, and it can wreak havoc on your emotions. And I see that way too much, and it shows up. It takes its toll on people's health, it takes its toll on people's relationships. It's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, are we ready for the solution?
I've got the solution. It just depends on if someone is really willing to face the truth and step up and say, this is what I need and this is what I want. And if that is the case and they're really honest, then we have a solution that can fix that.
So before we get to the solution, how does someone determine whether they really want to sell their business and whether the timing is right?
Well, that's a good question, and we could probably do an entire interview just on that one question alone. There are different reasons for selling for different buyers. We deal at Delta, specifically with one particular group, and that's the baby boomer business owner, and they're exiting, they're 65 and up, 67 and up, and their kids don't want the business. So I can speak to that with great authority. There are other reasons for other kinds of business owners to want to sell their businesses, like, for example, a serial entrepreneur or someone who's much younger, or some other reason. But let me talk about the baby boomers. If everything has grown stale and you run out of ideas to keep things moving, that's a good sign. That's a good sign it's time to leave. If you need to pour tons of money into updating your business, in other words, you sort of just let things slide, and you need to buy some new equipment, sell some old, dilapidated equipment, you need to freshen up the office, you need to maybe fire some employees, hire some new employees, you need to do a lot of renovation on your business, not just your offices, but your business. That's a good sign, because you've fallen behind competitively and your competition's got the better of you. Here's another one. You get an offer that you'd be foolish to refuse. This happens more than you might think, even during a down economy. Out of the blue, an offer might be made to you, and it's considerably more than your current evaluation. In most of these situations, it'd be crazy not to sell. Right now, interest rates are lower than ever before. That's a really good time to sell, because buyers can get good rates on their money. That makes things cheaper for them in terms of cost of capital. And the flip side of that is that whenever we see low interest rates, we see high asset values proportionally. It's like a seesaw. the lower interest rates go, the higher valuations go. And vice versa, the higher interest rates go, the lower valuations go.
Just like real estate, right?
Very, very much like real estate, yes. So overall, people are going to pay, over time, if people finance things, people are going to pay roughly the same price for it, whether interest rates are high or interest rates are low, because of the price differentials created. You have an opportunity to participate in another venture. So if there's something else, if there's something that's next that you can move on to, that's a good sign. That's a telltale sign that you might want to sell your business and then move on to the next venture. So those are some really good, let's say, early warning signals to let you know gently, or sometimes not so gently, that it's time to wake up and smell the coffee. You might want to put your business on the market if you're seeing one or more of those kinds of things.
Okay. All right. So you've figured out that you need to sell your business. Now what?
Yeah, the best thing to do is surround yourself with a winning team. And what I mean by winning team is people who have been there and done that and got the leather on their belt. They've got the T-shirt. They've been there. They've got the gray hairs and the scars on their backs of experience that will help you, number one, avoid the pitfalls, and number two, do the correct things the first time through, so that you don't have to go through a very steep learning curve to get the successful outcome that you desire. Number two is you need to start talking with them about what, quote, success means to you, what it looks like. And you need to start writing some things down that describe what your idea of a successful outcome is, so that you can really reverse engineer your exit process.
I think that one, if I may pause you for a moment, I think that one is so important. Writing down, it's like a filter. What you want, it clarifies the thinking.
Yes.
And it takes them outside, it allows them to dump all of the conflicting thinking and emotions and putting it down on paper. It allows them to just have a list of this is non-negotiable. This is absolutely what I want, and this is what I don't want my life to look like, right? After I sell. I think that's very, very important.
I couldn't have said it any better. That's world class. See, the world class business people are all about execution, and execution really starts with writing things down and what I call getting all of your thinking down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people today are averse to paper. I mean, they want to write it down on, an iPad or a file on their computer. I'm fine with that, but there is magic that happens when someone breaks out a pencil
Mm-hmm.
and a pad, or pen and a pad, and starts writing down their thoughts, or drawing pictures of what they want, or graphs, or something. They start creating a picture of what it is that they want to execute towards and what their outcome is. That's magical right there. And I think if you can take your writing and show it to the people who you put on your team, that is a much better way of clarifying your plan and getting things down so that they can become actionable. Those folks will help you develop that plan into something that is actionable, realistic, and attainable.
Mm-hmm. I know, sounds so simple. Sounds like a really simple thing to do, but most people will not do that.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's really not that hard.
No, just start writing. Write down what you want, the outcome of selling your business, what you want, what you don't want, what's okay, what might be negotiable.
Precisely.
Okay.
Precisely. And the last thing that I can suggest to a business owner who's really looking to exit their business is do the things that it takes to transform your job into a business and your business into an investment. So there's sort of a two-step process here. Most of the time, the people I see who want to exit their companies, they don't really have a business. Their business is them. And that means that their business is a job, not a business.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between owning a job and owning a business is leverage. There are several different ways to effectively leverage up and grow your company. The first is delegation. So that means putting employees around you so that you can delegate some of the daily tasks, and then you can monitor the results of that delegation. That's one way. Number two is through financial leverage and leveraging other people's brains, talent, and networks, and time, and so forth. But leveraging different aspects of your business financially, that could mean with other people's capital, and that might be a loan or an investor, for example. And the third way is through culture. There's a wonderful study on corporate culture, how the spirit of an organization and the way that the organization wants to do business, thinks about doing business, all of that is corporate culture. There's a wonderful study that says corporate culture is responsible for at least 50% of a business's earnings. In other words, if you can get a corporate culture where you have a world-class team with a world-class winning spirit, that could possibly increase your earnings 50% in probably less than a year. The study says about 6 months.
But if I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
if a business owner though is suffering from low-grade depression, is feeling overwhelmed, is overwhelmed with life events plus his business, that sounds like a pretty difficult challenge for them to embark on, wouldn't you say?
It could be, and there's two ways to solve that. The first is to break out of the depression. That might mean getting some help. But the second way might be easier, and that would mean installing a leader inside the organization who doesn't have a depressive problem, who could do it for you, and incentivize that manager or that executive to a point where they have a substantial reward for executing something like culture or leveraging your business. So those problems have solutions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they're easy, but they are attainable.
Okay.
And the third way or the fourth way to leverage, let me give you a bonus one. This is systems. You can systematize your business, and that just means basically writing down the processes for each person's position, steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so forth, and identifying the critical ones, the things that have to happen on a daily basis, and monitoring those, and then creating a report that can efficiently report the outcomes to management for measurement and changing the activities. So if you can effectively leverage your business and turn it from a job into an investment, the astute buyers that represent 5% of the sellers who want to sell their businesses every year. Because remember, it's about 7,500 buyers and it's about 150,000 sellers. Your chances go way, way up when you have successfully transformed your job into a business and a business into an investment for a buyer. Because the most astute buyers have their pick of businesses, and they're going to be attracted to the ones that will give them the best return for the least amount of risk. And that means they're going to be attracted to investments. Now you've just put your business at at the top of the stack, and you actually have a very good chance of selling at that point.
Very interesting. Okay. So the seller's got to be energized, possibly, to invest in their business. It's sort of, I go back to real estate because I think there are so many similarities, selling a house, selling a business. And it's just like someone who is getting ready to sell their house and does some needed upgrades to make their house more attractive. And especially in a buyer's market, they need to do that in order to get top dollar or competitive dollar for their property.
Sure.
But here we're talking about a business where if it's all about the owner, then a buyer would be less likely to be attracted to that business or interested in that business, because once the seller leaves, there's really no business if the seller is the business.
There you go.
So putting systems in place where there's more of a business independent of the owner.
Exactly. That's what makes it an investment, is that the owner doesn't have to be there to make baby run.
So for a seller who's a little bit stressed out, that might be overwhelming, what would you say to that seller if they are overwhelmed? They say, you know what, Heath, this all sounds great, but I'm just not there. I just physically, mentally, emotionally cannot put any more time into my business and do all the great things that you're talking about.
Okay. I would say this. Number one, there is hope. There is hope. You do not have to be shackled or corralled into what you think is a demise to your financial situation. I tell you what, for those people who are in that boat, have them call me so I can visit with them. And just with a few minutes, we can get them unstuck and on the road to a successful outcome. And my office is 210-369-4161. Those folks can call me directly, get me on the horn, and I will visit with them, and I'll talk them through the process of how to increase their chances of a successful outcome with actually not so much physical effort.
So we will link up your website at Living Wealthy Radio, but your website directly is deltabusinessservices.com, and your contact information, Heath, is on there. But you offer a complimentary phone conversation to help get the seller unstuck and give him options.
We do, yes. I was just speaking on this on Saturday. How people in life sometimes get stuck. It's just that life throws us sideways sometimes. And I've been there too. I've been there a couple of times myself. And I've gotten unstuck. So I've been there and I've done that. And I can relate. And I understand the feelings. I understand the emotions. And I can help you get successfully unstuck so that you can start getting some traction in your life and in the marketplace and get on down the road to a successful outcome. I've been there and done that. And I can help most anybody who wants to be real. That's the one caveat that I require. If you call me up, you need to be real. You need to speak the truth. And if you can give me the facts and be real with me, I'll be real with you and solve the problem.
And I happen to know that you're excellent, outstanding at all of that. And this service is really one that many sellers should, whether they're completely unstuck or overwhelmed or not so, they lose nothing by having the conversation with you. In fact,
Right.
I'd referred several of my clients your way, and they were amazed at how much they had learned from just having that conversation. You gave them insight that they had, that they really didn't have and really had never heard. And they've got a circle of advisors, what I call their table of advisors, that they work with all the time. And you just gave them other alternatives that they just had never considered or had been advised with.
Well, that's true.
But this is all you do. This is your area of expertise.
Yes, it's it's what I'm doing from here on in for the rest of my life. And so I've devoted my life to this. This is my passion, and this is my life. And the thing that really gives me the edge, I think, is that we are business buyers, so we're seeing the picture from a very rare point of view. Yes, the advisors that I know, that I've dealt with, who are really, really good, are excellent at their little piece of the puzzle. However, I see the whole picture. I can see down to the micro level of each piece of the puzzle, but I see the whole picture, how it all fits together. And so many times advisors, simply because that's all they do, is their little niche, they just see that one little part of it. And our edge comes from being in the rodeo, buying businesses. We're actually principals to a transaction rather than being an advisor to a principal in a transaction. And that's a little different.
Your whole process is very different than the traditional way of buying a business.
Right.
Can you speak to that just for a few minutes for those who are not familiar with Delta Business
Sure.
Services?
Sure. Well, the traditional way of selling a business sets sellers up for a raw deal. It doesn't really set them up for selling success, and quite frankly, it doesn't set a buyer up for buying success either. There are too many third parties that gum up the process and make a buying process very inefficient and very expensive. So what we decided to do, and this is after really more than half a decade of being in acquisitions. Literally, it was 6 years and 300 deals. What we do is we take the problems and the potential problems out of the equation. And what we do is we get back to basics of what it takes for a seller to feel success and what a buyer needs to feel success from a transaction. And actually, once you get the people with ulterior motives out of the way, it can become very clear what a seller needs in a transaction to feel success and what a buyer needs to feel in a transaction to get success. And what we've done is we've distilled that down into 5 points. Number one, a seller wants to sell. They're looking to get as much as they can for the business, but they're worried about capital gains taxes. So we address the capital gains tax issue. Number two, for our target customer, which is baby boomer business owners, they're looking to fund a retirement fund simultaneously with the proceeds of the sale, and they're worried about outliving that retirement fund. So we take care of the retirement planning too. Number three, the owners usually want to leave their heirs something nice in the estate, maybe not the business, because they're worried that their heirs wouldn't have the skills and tools to run the business effectively and grow it, but they still want to leave them something nice in the estate. So we have an estate kicker on the back end of our arrangement that takes care of their heirs as well. And that could be children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, charities, you name it. You can set your beneficiaries up however you want. Plus, it's asset protected so that we're not subject to major market swings, and the whole thing is guaranteed so that if there is a major market event and a deal goes sideways, a business seller will be made whole 100 cents on the dollar with a financial guarantee. So we take all of the risk and all of the worry out of the entire exit process, and we set a business seller up for life. By the way, it applies to the spouse too. So not only the business owner, but their spouse is taken care of on into retirement, and they can have a successful outcome from here on in.
You know, your process is completely revolutionary.
it's pretty good.
It's outstanding. And I'm not being biased. We have checked out the traditional way that sellers sell their business and buyers buy their business. And as you discussed, it's so lacking in so many ways for the seller, for really all parties. And so hats off to you, Heath, for setting up this business model and putting together really what's truly a win for sellers on so many fronts, and certainly a win for Delta. If it wasn't a win for you, why would you do it, right? It needs to make sense for all parties.
Well, indeed, and thank you. And it was very interesting to me to have breakfast the other day with one of my competition. You know, we have competition at Delta. We're not the only ones in the marketplace who have seen these demographic shifts and positioned themselves as business buyers. And we're friends with our competition. I mean, you know, we're not antagonistic towards them at all, because the problem, quite frankly, is so big that the more qualified business buyers out there, the better. We need to do something to save the economy. And the problem is that no one wants to do the real hard work to gain the skills and tools to become a qualified business buyer and owner, except for this one gentleman who I had breakfast with, and he actually came to San Antonio to meet me, and we talked, and he said, this is from our competition now. He said that what you've got is something that's amazing, Heath. And to hear a compliment that was sincere, the guy was sincere when he told me this, and to tell me right on down the line, not just with our solution, but about our team. We have a world-class team. We have a world-class approach. We're very easy to work with if you're willing to face the truth. We can help almost anybody. In fact, I would say we can help everybody if they are willing to face the truth. And that's what this gentleman told me, and that was a very, very good feeling that I got from our competition. These are people who are competing with us. Our competition loves us, and that I had a very good weekend as a result of that.
Outstanding. Well, again, we will post the link to Delta Business Services on the Living Wealthy Radio website, but you could go direct to deltabusinessservices.com. If you, a loved one, a friend, a colleague, has a business that they're thinking they may want to sell, they don't have to know they want to sell, they're thinking that maybe they want to sell now or sometime in the future, really refer them over to Delta Business Services in heath-frantzen, and that conversation will not, we know it will absolutely not be a waste of time. It will in fact be time very well spent, because your insight and the information that you share, Heath, is outstanding. And of course, that's a complimentary call. There was no charge to the call, so I don't know why somebody wouldn't want to pick up the phone and just chat with you about their business.
Sure. I'm happy to do it.
All right.
One of my favorite things.
Yes, I know. You're very passionate about what you do, and you're very generous with the information that you provide. The website also is packed full of great information, great articles. And Heath, thank you so much for coming on Living Wealthy Radio again today, and we will have many more conversations in the future.
Thank you, Teresa. You're awesome. I really appreciate this time with Living Wealthy, and please give your staff all my best. They're wonderful to work with.
Always. Thank you so much, Heath. Take good care.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.